Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to Korean Atlanta Mentorship. And in this video, we're going to react to a video called Neil Postman on Cyberspace 1995. Neil Postman. If you don't know who he is, a former New York University professor, born in 1931, passed away in 2003, and he had a lot of insight into the educational system, technology, entertainment. So one of the books he wrote was "Amusing Ourselves to Death," and this was in 1985, folks. So I feel like I don't know what it is, but I just feel like he was able to predict the society that we would morph into. Um, and he passed away in 2003. And so 1995, that was kind of the when the internet was about to take a hold in society, and then it didn't really take off until the early 2000s. But let's just watch. It's very interesting.
Define cyberspace.
Cyberspace is metaphorical idea, which is supposed to be the space where your consciousness is located when you're using computer technology on the internet, for example. And I'm not entirely sure it's such a useful term, but I think that's what most people mean by it.
How does that strike you? I mean, that your consciousness is located somewhere other than in your body.
Well, the most interesting thing about the term, for me, is that it made me begin to think about where one's consciousness is when interacting with other kinds of media. For example, even when you're reading, where are you? What is the space in which your consciousness is located? And when you're watching television, where are you? Who are you? Because people say with the internet, for example, it's a little different in that you're always interacting, or most of the time, with another person. And when you're in cyberspace, I suppose you can be anyone you want.
Okay, so let's just a few things there. First of all, if you're not familiar with the term cyberspace, that was kind of like the buzzword for the internet in the mid to late 90s. Okay, I don't think I haven't heard that term in a long time. But number two, this is really important. Okay, he's talking about you can be anybody who you want to be when you're on the internet, and I think that really speaks to today because I feel like so many people have identity issues because they're on the internet all day, right? Let me replay that one more time.
And when you're in cyberspace, I suppose you can be anyone you want. And
Ooh, yeah, that's
I
really deep.
think, as this program indicates, it's worth talking about because this is a new idea.
Remember, 1995, we didn't have the internet in the scale we do now. No smartphones, no Ethernet. You literally had to wait like 5 minutes to be able to connect on, and a picture would take like 10 minutes to load.
And something very different from face-to-face co-presence with another human being.
Face to face co presence. Isn't that something that we're missing nowadays? Face to face co presence, the presence of another human being.
Do you think this is a good thing or a bad thing, or you haven't decided?
Well, no, I've mostly, I've mostly decided that new technology, this kind or any other kind, is a kind of Faustian bargain. It always gives us something important, but it also takes away something that's important.
Okay. So one of the analogies that he likes to use is that if you have water and then you put a red dye in the water, it affects the whole environment. And that's how he talks about technology. Like we always are looking at the positives of the new technology and not asking like, okay, if we introduce this, what does it take away? Right? I've never heard anybody in real life ask like, what does this new technology that we're going to introduce take away? If we introduce let's say the iPad, and I don't know if you knew this or not, Steve Jobs didn't ever want to give his kids iPads. Did you know that? Like he didn't. But if we introduce it, what does it take away from our society? Okay. And very interesting. Now let's keep listening with regards to what he has to say about the internet itself.
That's been true of the alphabet, and the printing press, and telegraphy right up through the computer.
One of the things that you also have to understand is that even things like the alphabet and reading are not natural human activities. They are in itself a technology, right? They're expressing ideas and being able to transmit one idea, I'm sorry, an idea from one space to another without an actual human being interacting, which is completely like unnatural. I don't know if you really thought about that, but it's the same with computers. Now, if you really look into his books, it's very interesting about how the printing press is kind of what is seen as like the transformation of society. Now, I know we're not talking about the printing press here, but it's just something that I want to mention if you want to look more into his books.
For instance, when I hear people talk about the information superhighway, it will become possible to shop at home and bank at home and get your texts at home and get entertainment at home and so on. I often wonder if this doesn't signify the end of any meaningful community life. I mean, when two human beings get together and they're co-present, there is built into it a certain responsibility we have for each other.
And I think right now in 2025, we are at that stage of life where there is no community life. And when two human beings are together, they do not have a sense of responsibility towards each other. You see this everywhere, right? I don't remember the last time when I was in the same room as a human being and I felt like, hey, if I'm gonna like fall down, that they're gonna help me out. You know what I mean? Like if the world if S hits the fan for me, are they gonna be there for me and vice versa? Because I feel like if I would always definitely make that offer to the person I'm in the same room, but I'm always like suspicious. Like, will they do that for me? Right. And that's kind of what's missing is the sense of responsibility you have towards your fellow man or woman. Okay. So let's keep going.
And when people are co-present in family relationships and other relationships, that responsibility is there. You can't just turn off a person.
Right, and I think that's the thing that we've kind of normalized and wondering like why is society going astray is because we just made it normal to turn off people because they're inconvenient in their lives, in our lives, unfortunately, right? So think about a time when we didn't have this and the people in our lives were considered to be assets rather than liabilities. Like we took care of other people. And this is kind of very similar to another reaction I did about Dr. Drew, where he's talking about like with addiction, people like, we used to try to get people help and then we tell them like you're living your best life or we just don't care anymore. And then we wonder why like the whole world has gone to SHIT, right?
Uh, on the internet, you can. And I wonder if this doesn't diminish that built-in human sense of responsibility we have for each other. Then also, one wonders about social skills.
Yeah, social skills, they're gone, right? Social skills. So I think one of the biggest things that he was able to predict, again, 1995, and he was just kind of thinking about, all right, well, we can watch our entertainment online, we can bank online, we can, shop online. And he's looking it in the eyes of suspicion, whereas everyone else is just celebrating. It's like, well, what are the things that we're going to take away from this? Like, what's being taken away from this when we have these things in our life? And it's very deep. Like when I heard this in 2005, I was like, this really made a great impression on me. And I think now that we have generations where the internet has been with them before their birth, right? They don't see a life before the internet, right? Whereas, the people in this channel, especially when I look at the age demographics, we know what it was like. And I think it should have been our responsibility as a collective to make sure that we were able to provide an environment where we did have a communal life, a sense of responsibility towards each other, and not just a society where we could just switch off people and almost pretty much tell them that they don't matter, right? So let's just keep going with this.
That, after all, talking to someone on the internet is a different proposition from being in the same room with someone, not in terms of responsibility, but just in terms of revealing who you are and discovering who the other person is. As a matter of fact, I'm one of the few people, not only that you're likely to interview, but maybe even ever meet, who is opposed to the use of personal computers in school.
Ooh, when's the last time we heard that? Ooh, I think I like that as an idea. Take away personal computers in school, right? And I think if you actually ever do like a search on TikTok compilations of teachers saying their students are dumb, I think a lot of it has just been because of the massive push for everything has to be on, smart boards, technology, and all that. And when's the last time you ever heard like I just oppose personal computers in schools? Like probably this is like the only time I don't think I've ever heard that in society in general.
Because school, it seems to me, has always largely been about how to learn as part of a group. School has never really been about individualized learning, but about how to be socialized as a citizen and as a human being, so that we have important rules in school, always emphasizing the fact that one is part of a group. And I worry about the personal computer because it seems once again to emphasize individualized learning and individualized activity.
What images come to your mind when you think about what our lives will be like in cyberspace?
Well, the worst images are of people who are overloaded with information which they don't know what to do with, have no sense of what is relevant and what is irrelevant. People who become information junkies.
What do you mean? How do
Well,
you mean
the problem in the 19th century with information was that we lived in a culture of information scarcity. And so humanity addressed that problem, beginning with photography and telegraphy in the 1840s. We tried to solve the problem of overcoming the limitations of space, time, and form. And for about 100 years, we worked on this problem, and we solved it in a spectacular way. And now, by solving that problem, we created a new problem that people have never experienced before: information glut, information meaninglessness, information incoherence.
And I think that's what happens with a lot of people is that they get overloaded with information. So even if when you give them the right information, they act like well, you didn't teach me anything or you didn't do anything for me, right? Like this was why like I've always wanted to not even teach velocity banking online because there are literally people, even though I go step by step where it's like I don't know what to do because a lot of it is an information overload, information glut, right? I think he's definitely right on, and we've already had the problem of information overload solved with the invention of the printing press, photography. I remember reading a long time ago how a newspaper today would contain more information, like a daily newspaper would contain more information than someone like in the Middle Ages would ever experience in their lifetime.
I mean, if there are children starving in Somalia or any other place, it's not because of insufficient information. And if crime is rampant in the streets in New York and Detroit and Chicago or wherever, it's not because of insufficient information. And if people are getting divorced and mistreating their children, and if sexism and racism are blights on our social life, none of that has anything to do with inadequate information. Now, along comes cyberspace and the information superhighway, and everyone seems to have the idea that, here, we can do it. If only we can have more access to more information faster and in more diverse forms, at long last we'll be able to solve these problems. And I don't think it has anything to do with it.
Do you believe that the fact that people are more connected globally will lead to a greater degree of homogenization of the global society?
But here's the puzzle about that, Charlie. When McLuhan talked about the world becoming a global village, and when people ask, as you did, about how connections can be made, everyone seemed to think that the world would become, in some good sense, more homogeneous. But we seem to be experiencing the opposite. I mean, all over the world, we see a kind of reversion to tribalism. People are going back to their tribal roots in order to find a sense of identity. I mean, we see it in Russia, in Yugoslavia, in Canada, in the United States. I mean, in our own country. Why is it that every group now not only is more aware of its own grievances, but seems to want its own education? You know, we want an Afrocentric curriculum and a Korean-centric curriculum and a Greek-centered curriculum. What is it about all this globalization of communication that is making people return to to smaller units of identity? It's a puzzlement.
And one of the, I think, easy ways that you can see this is maybe like Reddit and subreddit communities where people feel like they're, if they're part of like a subreddit, then they're part of a tribe. I think that's an easy way to kind of think about this, right? And a lot of times, in modern society, like you see all these subcultures as well, but you don't really see like a unified group or presence throughout the nation, unfortunately, right? So let's just keep going.
Well, what do you think the people, society, should be doing to try and anticipate these negatives and be able to do something about them?
I think everyone should be sensitive to certain questions. For example, when confronted with a new technology, whether it's a cellular phone or high-definition television or cyberspace or internet, one question should be, what is the problem to which this technology is a solution?
I guarantee you that 99% of people are not doing that. They're just consuming for the sake of consuming. They got the 4K TV and it's like, "What? They got the 8K TV now?" And in fact, I'm doing that as well. Like I saw the release of the Nintendo Switch 2 and I was like, "This is just like the Nintendo Switch but a little bit bigger, but I'm probably going to buy it cuz I'm a sucker." Right? It's not solving any problems in my life, but let's keep going.
And the second question would be, whose problem is it actually? And the third question would be, if there is a legitimate problem here that is solved by the technology, what other problems will be created by my using this technology? About 6 months ago, I bought a new Honda Accord, and the salesman told me that it had cruise control. And I asked him, what is the problem to which cruise control is the solution? By the way, there's an extra charge for cruise control. And he said no one had ever asked him that before, but
Yeah, it's the same thing when I felt when I went to buy a car. I literally did not want a tablet in or tablet screen in my car, but that's all they sell now, which sucks. Yeah. But luckily I don't even know how to do cruise control with my new Toyota. I used to, but I'm too lazy to learn. But there's no real problem that it's actually trying to solve that most people were looking for a solution to. And I think that's a big problem with how um, our relationship is with technology.
then he said, well, it's the problem of keeping your foot on the gas. And I said, well, I've been driving for 35 years. I'd never found that to be a problem. I mean, am I using this technology or is it using me? Because in a technological culture, it is very easy to be swept up in the enthusiasm for technology. And of course, all the technophiles and around all the people who adore technology and are promoting it everywhere you turn.
Well, Neil Postman, thank you for all of your cautions.
Right. And it kind of makes me sad um, being part of a generation that doesn't question the societal changes that we've been introduced upon. And I feel like I'm like the only person in my generation who wanted to kind of critique everything that we've done because I feel like we've made a society um, that's not sustainable for future generations. And um, I don't know. Let me just see this. Yeah, I don't think we have. And I think technology is one part of it. Another part is like a lack of leadership, and another part is like people just don't have no sense of responsibility for each other or their the people that they're supposed to take care of, right? I don't know why that's what people wanted, but that's the society that we've created. Okay, but this is a very good and insightful video. Neil Postman, Cyberspace 1995. And it's kind of refreshing too to kind of hear certain viewpoints that you would never hear. Like you ask like almost like a million people, and they'll act like this is like you know, it's almost like someone from another planet speaking. But this was only 1995, and this was before the internet took a hold in society. All right, well that's it, folks. This is KAM Reacts Korean Atlanta Mentorship. What'd you think? Leave a comment below, and I'll see you all in the next video.